Good morning. It's Wednesday morning. Wednesday's always fun. We get to go to church. Well, some of us do. Um, the book of the prophet Jeremiah. Yesterday and the day before, uh, God through Jeremiah, God through Jeremiah exposes a false prophet. And when the false prophets preach, the flesh is weak. We're human, and we want what they say to be true. We want to hear that we're going to be rich, that we're going to be powerful, that we're going to be healthy, that we're going to find love and romance. We like to hear that all the rotten things that we do are okay, as long as we, as long as we ask forgiveness and, of course, give money to the work of the Lord. You see, it's a business model. Prophecy is a business model for false prophets. That's how they make their money. Doesn't matter whether they're right or wrong, if they can capture and spellbind the people, mesmerize them with their charismatic, and I don't mean that in a religious sense, what I mean is that their charisma, their personal charisma, their charismatic personality will draw people to them just like flies to you know what? Poop. uh, and so God always deals with false prophets. God settles all accounts. And I'm just going to read the tale of the false prophet and give you his prophecy again because it bears on the beginning of today's study, which is the message that Jeremiah sends to the Jews from Jerusalem who are already in Babylonian captivity. And so if we would just take a step back for the last 2 days, Jeremiah 28, and it came to pass the same year in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah, in the 4th year in the 5th month, that Hananiah, good morning, Gala, the son of Azur the prophet, which was of Gibeon, spake unto me in the house of the Lord in the presence of the priests and of all the people, saying, Thus speaketh the Lord of the hosts, not the Lord of ghosts, the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, saying, I have broken the yoke of the king of Babylon. Within 2 full years will I bring again into this place all the vessels of the Lord. And the Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, good morning, Trent, took away from this place and carried them away to Babylon. And I'll bring again to this place Jeconiah, the son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, with all the captives of Judah that went into Babylon, saith the Lord, for I will break the yoke of the king of Babylon. Then the prophet Jeremiah said unto the prophet Hananiah in the presence of all the priests and in the presence of all the people that stood in the house of the Lord. Even the prophet Jeremiah said, Amen, the Lord do so. Oh boy, I would love that to happen. I mean, that's the way I feel when I hear false prophecy. I like everything to be just like sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything is wonderful. That's what I feel when we're together. I think it was Leslie Gore, although that would have been 60 years ago, so I'm not altogether sure. Yeah, I hope that everything is just like you said. Amen. The Lord do so. Let it all come to pass. The Lord perform thy words which thou hast prophesied, to bring again the vessels of the Lord's house and all that is carried away captive from Babylon into this place. I would like nothing better than for all these good things to happen. All of these happy, clappy, rah, rah, rah stuff that you're doing. I would love for it to happen. I would love for it to be true, because we all want health and a long life and wealth, and we want to be skinnier and taller. We want all those things. Or whatever your situation is, you got your wants and desires. You're human. But what Jeremiah is saying, hey, I wish that all that was true. It's like Merle Haggard saying, we'll all be drinking that free bubble up and eating that rainbow stew. Yeah. Yeah, everything will be the big rock candy mountain, but it's just not going to be like that. And this is how God deals with this false prophet. Jeremiah just said, boy, I want everything to turn out like you said. Nevertheless, hear thou this word that I speak in thine ears and in the ears of all the people. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms, of war and of evil and of pestilence. The prophet which prophesieth of peace, when the word of the prophet shall come to pass, then shall the prophet be known that the Lord hath truly sent him. And then Hananiah the prophet took the yoke from off the prophet Jeremiah's neck and brake it. And Hananiah spake in the presence of all the people, saying, Thus saith the Lord, even so will I break the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, from the neck of all the nations within the space of 2 full years. Well, and the prophet Jeremiah went his way. Then the word of the Lord came unto Jeremiah the prophet, after that Hananiah the prophet had broken the yoke from off the neck of the prophet Jeremiah, saying, Go and tell Hananiah, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Thou hast broken the yokes of wood, but thou shalt make for them yokes of iron. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I put a yoke of iron upon the neck of all these nations, that they may serve Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. And they shall serve him. And I have given him the beasts of the field also. Then said the prophet Jeremiah unto Hananiah the prophet, Hear now, Hananiah, the Lord hath not sent thee, but thou makest this people to trust in a lie. Therefore thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will cast thee from off the face of the earth. This year thou shalt die, because thou hast taught rebellion against the Lord. So Hananiah the prophet died the same year in the 7th month. And we did the math yesterday and determined that it was only 2 months after Hananiah had made this false prophecy. God deals with false prophets. He might not kill you here, but he'll kill you there. Jesus says, Fear not him who is able to kill the body. Yea, it said, but fear him that hath the power, after he hath killed the body, hath the power to cast both body and soul into hell. Yea, fear him. God settles all accounts. He just doesn't settle them all on payday or the first of the month. God settles all accounts. He just doesn't settle them all here. He might be settling them in eternity, but God settles all accounts. And therein it lies a great portion of our hope, because the people who wrong us will be dealt with. The people who lie to us will be dealt with. The people who cheat us will be dealt with. If you're a Christian, people take advantage of your good nature. They will cheat you and hurt you if they can, because that is the nature of some people. When I first went to Nashville, I had a guy that ran a large publishing company. He and I was in his office pitching some of my songs to him. And he said, and we got to talking about church. And he said, Jimmy, just because they got a fish up over the door in their office or a cross on the wall doesn't mean they won't cheat you. See, the false prophets give the true prophets a bad name, and God deals with all of them. I hope the harshest he deals with me in the next life is when I enter his presence and he says, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. That's all I care about anymore. I don't care about anything here except for bringing more people to Christ. I want to lead more people to Jesus. We're going to be doing a big evangelistic outreach at Galena starting in April. Brother James Akins is going to be coming down on Tuesday nights. Gayla and Charlie Davis are going to come and lead music. And I still have some spring revivals to do, but I will be there on Tuesday night, every Tuesday that I'm in town. We're going to make some noise. We're going to have good singing, and we're going to have good preaching. And I believe that God is not done with the Baptist church there at Galena. I believe we're going to still do some more damage. I believe we're going to hurt the kingdom of Satan. I believe we're going to make old split foot squeal. Somebody called him old Slewfoot the other night in church, and I had to laugh because my nanny called him old split foot. Yeah, well, anyway, God settles all accounts, and I hope that He marks up some things to our good on the good side of our ledger as far as our testimony for Jesus Christ and winning people for the Lord. I want to see some new Christians. I want to baptize some people. I haven't baptized anybody in a year. That's criminal. We need to do a better job. We tried this last year. We're going to do something different this year. This is still the Galena campaign in a coordination with Ozark Gospel Church and Brother Akins. We didn't give up last year. We just reevaluated it. How this is not plan B, but this is just the second phase, the second battle in an extended war. Onward, Christian soldiers. Now, beginning in chapter 29, God gives Jeremiah a prophecy to send to those that are captive in Babylon. Now, remember, Hananiah said that you don't need to worry about the captives in Babylon. God's going to bring all of them back. He's going to bring back all the silver and gold, too. He's going to break the yoke from Nebuchadnezzar's neck. Well, God gives Jeremiah the real prophecy to send to those in the captivity. He's not just gulling the home crowd. He's sending a message to the people who are held captive. That's one of the most beautiful things about Jesus. One of the reasons he came was to set the captive free and to restore sight to the blind. Oh, that's beautiful stuff, man. That's good stuff. God doesn't change. He wants to set the captive free. Chapter 29, the message to the Jews in the first captivity. Now these are the words of the letter that Jeremiah the prophet sent from Jerusalem unto the residue of the elders, which were carried away captives. They were taken away in what we call the first deportations. There's another minor deportation, and then the final captivity, the final destruction of Jerusalem. It doesn't happen for about 11 years, so we're right here in the beginning of Zedekiah's reign. We're probably back to I would say we're in 599. To 597 maybe BC, somewhere in there. Because we know that Jerusalem fell in 586 BC. Nebuchadnezzar took it captive, destroyed the temple. So he's sending a message to the people that were taken away captive in the first deportation. All those people that the false prophet Hananiah in the previous chapter said that God was going to break the yoke of Nebuchadnezzar. He's going to let all those people come back. Well, now Jeremiah is given the real prophecy, and he's going to send to those people in the captivity. Now, these are the words of the letter that Jeremiah the prophet sent from Jerusalem unto the residue of the elders, which were carried away captives, and to the priests, and to the prophets, and to all the people whom Nebuchadnezzar had carried away captive from Jerusalem to Babylon. After that Jeconiah the king, son of Jehoiakim, and the queen, and the eunuchs and the princes of Judah and Jerusalem, and the carpenters and the smiths were departed from Jerusalem. He took the king, took his wife, took the seed royal, took the princes, took all the nobles, And the rich people, the smart people, the big landowners, he took most of them away and their wealth. This message was going to be carried, beginning in verse 3, by the hand of Elisah, the son of Shaphan, and Gemariah, the son of Hilkiah, whom Zedekiah, the king of Judah, sent unto Babylon to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, saying, King Zedekiah of Judah was sending messages, ambassadors to Babylon, to King Nebuchadnezzar. When one of those ambassadors went, Gemaliah, who is one of the friendly people to Jeremiah, Jeremiah gives him a letter to take with him. So I told you the other day that one of the ways that Jeremiah got his prophecies out to places like Babylon or Assyria or wherever God told him to send the prophecy was he would give it to the ambassador from that country when they came to the capital of Jerusalem. He would give the messages to them or talk to those ambassadors and give it to them verbally. That was one of the ways he got around as much as he did because they didn't have Uber drivers, to take you everywhere. And so God gave the prophecy to Jeremiah. Jeremiah and or Baruch wrote it down, gave it to these men who were going to Babylon as emissaries from King Zedekiah. That's how the prophecy got to Babylon. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, this is what the letter said, the God of Israel, unto all that are carried away captives, whom I have caused to be carried away from Jerusalem and Babylon. God is reminding them that it's all his idea that they be taken captive. They don't understand it then. But beloved, the way things turned out, if God had not carried Jeconiah and his wife away captive from Jerusalem to Babylon, there would be a large hole blown in the line of the genealogy from King David through Solomon to the Lord Jesus Christ. Read about that in the first chapter of the Gospel according to St. Matthew, that Jeconiah was in the line, the bloodline. He was an ancestor of Jesus Christ. And if Nebuchadnezzar hadn't hauled him off to Babylon as a captive, then he might have died just like Zedekiah and probably Jehoiakim did. You see, God knows the end from the beginning. He declares the end from the beginning, and he purposes a thing, and he does it. And he purposed that Jesus would be the legal, not only the legal, but the bloodline descendant from King David. He gets his legality through Solomon, Jesus does, through that line. He gets his blood and flesh and bone back to Abraham through David, through his son, Nathan, Solomon's little brother. So Jeremiah is sending a prophecy to the king and all the people that are taken away captive to Babylon. And God caused it to happen. He reminds us now that he caused this to happen. He purposed it and he did it as a punishment to Judah. Because they owed him 70 years of Sabbaths. For 490 years, they had not given the land its Sabbath. We'll read more about that later. And so, every seventh year, you were supposed to let the ground lay fallow. And then the year after the 70th Sabbath of rest, 70th year Sabbath, 70 times 7, 490. Then the next year would be the year of Jubilee, where you set the captives free and restore land back to the original owner. You see, in Israel, ancient Israel and Judah, before men perverted it, you couldn't sell your inheritance. That's why Naboth wouldn't sell his vineyard to Ahab, and Ahab killed him, or Jezebel killed him and gave the land to Ahab. He said, I can't sell my inheritance. When it talks about the land going back to property, say if you get poor in ancient Israel and you got to sell a piece of ground so that your family can live, maybe you're going to go off the union wages are better, say in Capernaum or wherever, or Dan, and so you go up there and work and you sell your land to live while you're living somewhere else. In the year of Jubilee, that piece of ground would come back to you or to your heir, because they didn't sell property in ancient Israel. It was against the law. You could not mar your inheritance. That's why the year of Jubilee. What they did actually was they leased it. They wouldn't have called it that, but that's exactly what it amounts to. You lease it to whoever you sold it to, or quote, sold it to until the year of Jubilee. But he had sent them into captivity. One of the reasons he sent them into captivity was for the land. They had not given the seventh year Sabbaths to the land for 490 years. But this is what he's telling to the people in Babylon in verse 5. Build ye houses. Remember, why would you build a house if you were coming back in 2 years? This was Hananiah said. Hananiah is a false prophet. God has to contradict the false prophet. He's probably already sent a letter to Babylon telling them you're coming back in 2 years. So now God has to straighten things out. Through Jeremiah's letter, God says in verse 5, build ye houses and dwell in them, and plant gardens and eat the fruit of them. Does that sound like advice to somebody that's going to come back in 2 years? Take ye wives and beget sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons. They're going to live there long enough for those sons to grow up. And take wives for your sons, and give your daughters, who aren't even born yet, to husbands. That takes a while. That they may bear sons and daughters. Oh, grandchildren. But I'm going back home in 2 years. No, you're not. You're going to stay here, and you want to drive down deep roots. You want to plant deep roots. You want to sink those roots deep. You want to drive those tent stakes deep to where you won't be easily moved. That you may increase there and not be diminished. I want you to keep growing as a people. A whole bunch of you were killed, O Israel, by the pestilence, by the sword, by the drought, by the famine, by the war, and by the captivity, by the destruction of Jerusalem. We want you to rebuild your numbers while you're in Babylon. Verse 7, and seek the peace of the city, whither I have caused you to be carried away captives. Wherever you land, wherever Nebuchadnezzar brings you and puts you, you pray for the peace of that place. And pray unto the Lord for it, for the peace of that city. For in the peace thereof shall ye have peace. I'm telling you, you can live a peaceful, profitable life right there where you are as a captive. You just go to work, you plant fields, whatever's in front of you. If you have business to do, do it. Matter of fact, Babylon is where the great business practices came from that the ancient Jews were so well known for. As a matter of fact, they were so well known for it that when the Pharisees came along about 400 years later, the Pharisees, they had to make a whole bunch of new laws to govern the conduct of that business life. For thus saith the Lord in verse 8, First, for thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. Now, I've noticed in the last few chapters, he's calling himself the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. The Lord of hosts is very similar to when he calls himself the Lord of Sabaoth, or the God of Sabaoth, which means the God of battle, the God who goes to battle for you. The Lord of hosts means he's commander of the host. He's commander of the armies of heaven, the commander in chief. Even though Michael, the archangel, may be the leader of those angelic soldiers, the God is the God of hosts. It's his army. What he's telling them is he's using a warlike term to encourage people to have peace. He's saying that because you're captive in Babylon, you escaped the sword. I didn't kill you like I want to kill people who didn't obey me. I pulled you out of there because I need you to be the legal father of Jesus Christ, Jeconiah. And so instead of one of your brothers or one of your uncles, I saved you out of there because I have a purpose to do it. So make the best of it. See, he's the God of war, but he has brought people out of a war, and the war is coming to Jerusalem. He's brought people out of a war and put them in a safe place, the way we would define it, behind enemy lines. They're on the Babylonian home front, so to speak. And there are no, B-29 bombers, no flying fortresses. It's God's way of telling them, I'm the God of war, but I've delivered you out of the war and set you here. Now I want you to, remember that old saying, bloom where you planted? This is a situation like that. I put you where you don't want to be, but you can have peace. You can have production. You can make money. You can have prosperity. You can have a family. You can have grandchildren. You can do all that right here. And you pray for the peace and you beg me for the peace of wherever you're at. And I'll give it to you. And he does for 37 more years. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, let not your prophets and diviners that be in the midst of you deceive you. Anyway, I know God says that you got prophets there that are saying the same thing that Hananiah said. Why? Because Hananiah sent a letter to you just like Jeremiah is, and he gave you a false prophecy and you believed it. He's saying, don't believe it. And the prophets that you have there with you, don't believe them. Remember, the whole reason for the destruction was threefold. Judah went a whoring after other gods. They sacrificed their children, and they believed the lies of false prophets. And of course, that's the same reason he's destroying us now. Let not your prophets and your diviners that be in the midst of you deceive you, neither hearken to your dreams which ye cause to be dreamed. In other words, even if you have a dream yourself, it ain't from me, God is saying. It's just a dream you dream because I've already decided what I'm going to do. You're going to be captive here, and you might as well get used to it, and I want you to prosper here. I want you to have peace here, and I want you to have children and grandchildren here. I want you to be progenitors. And it's talking about the prophets in verse 9, for they prophesy falsely unto you in my name. I have not sent them. We'll get into the 70 years of captivity tomorrow. It's a further explanation that Judah is going to be captive of Babylon for 70 years, and then God will let some of them go back to rebuild the temple. Verse 9 again, for they prophesy falsely to you in my name. I have not sent them, saith the Lord. I have not sent them. Turn on the TV, you'll see somebody God didn't send. Turn on the radio, you'll hear somebody God didn't send. I don't care how big your church is. I don't care how famous they are. I don't care how well their books sell. I don't know how many followers they have. I don't care how big a deal they are or think they are. If it agreeth not to the law and to the testimony, if it agreeth not thereto, is because there is no light in them, and they agree not to the law and the testimony. God is telling them in captivity, He's saying, look, believing the false prophets is what got you here in the first place. Don't believe anything else they say. Believe me, God says. You believe me, and I will prosper you, and I'll give you a prosperity and a posterity. I'll take care of you. That's an alliteration. I will give you posterity, prosperity, and peace. And He did. There were some speed bumps in the way during the Medo-Persian part of the empire after Darius the Mede took Babylon. Roughly 37, 38, 39 years after Nebuchadnezzar took Jerusalem. But they were able, for the most part, for all of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, they were able to remain at peace. As a matter of fact, we know that Ezekiel was a great prophet during this period. Ezekiel would have been one of the ones that letter was sent to. Ezekiel was already in Babylon, and he was already an older man. And then Daniel, of the seed royal, by this time he was a eunuch, they had already made him a eunuch, and he was part of the seed royal. That means he was one of the sons. And but you can't. If he's a eunuch now, he can't very well be a progenitor. But he's already in the palace learning how to serve Nebuchadnezzar. This is the time period we're talking about. God is telling them, part of the reason that you're here is because you believe the lies of false prophets. You need to stop believing false prophets today. Now, you're not at home. You're not in Jerusalem. You're not, matter of fact, Jerusalem's still standing. Nebuchadnezzar hadn't taken the country yet. This is after the first deportation. And God is saying, you're in a land that you don't know, but I'll prosper you there. You're among people you don't know, but I'll give you peace there. You don't know what's going to happen to you, but I'll give you children there. I'll give you grandchildren there. I'll give you a life. His only request was that they pray for the peace of wherever they're at. If they were in Shushan, the palace, pray for peace of Shushan. If they were in Babylon, pray for Babylon. If they were at Kibar, pray for Kibar. If they were at Nineveh, which was the old Assyrian capital not far from Babylon, if they happened to be at Nineveh among the Assyrians and Chaldeans there, then they were to pray for that place. If they were far to the east toward India, what would be Pakistan and India, if they were far off to the east from where they were in a city that the Persians held, then they were supposed to pray God to let them prosper and have peace and have a progeny in that place. It's an unusual proposal because God didn't even promise that much to the people that would return to Him in Jerusalem. Sometimes God shows Himself by the wonderful works that he wants to do, things that only God could do. Only God could decide whether you're going to have children, and then only he can decide whether they're going to have children, so you'll have grandchildren. Imagine being captive and going somewhere and being set down in a place you don't know. Would be a comfort for the believer. Now, I'm sure that a lot of the people were worried and scared and trying to figure out how they're going to get back home. God sends Jeremiah's word to them, or sends word to them through Jeremiah the prophet that they're not going back home. It's going to be a long captivity. We'll learn tomorrow that they're going to be there for 70 years, and many of them will never go back, even the youngest, even their children, because up until oh, up until the Roman era, or at least the era of imperial Rome, Augustus, who was Octavian, from about the beginning of around I don't know, the 40s, 50s BC, after the death of Julius Caesar and the Civil War between Antony and Octavian. Somewhere around then, there was a large community of Jews in Babylon. Whether it just dispersed and disintegrated and went to seed because the Romans left, I don't know, or the Romans didn't advance far enough to hold it, we don't know. We know that at one point, the Emperor Tiberius didn't think anything west of what would be of what would be the eastern edges of modern day Turkey and Syria was worth him wasting any soldiers over. But that's another story. Wherever God puts you, He can use His power to prosper you, to give you peace, to give you a posterity. He can do all those things for you, wherever you are and however you are. It's well within His power to do it. What He wants is obedience. What He wants is for us to quit rebelling. And I am a world-class rebel. I came to the ministry late in life because I'm a rebel. I have problems still nowadays because I'm a rebel. And I have to repent in tears when I rebel against the Lord. And I say, that's what I wanted. That's not what you want. I'm sorry. I know I'm not alone in this, but I'm supposed to set a good example. Well, your teacher does not always set the best example, because in sin did my mother conceive me, and my days have been evil, even the best of them, when compared to the grace and the majesty and the mercy of the God who lives forever, who's revealed to us in the Son of God, Jesus Christ. If you don't know Him, come to Him today. God bless you.